come on a beautiful day when there are other distractions to join us for this very special reading. I want to say a couple of words about the Writers Center, not in a lot of detail. I could talk for a long time. And then just say a little bit about our connection with the Veterans Writing Project and how it sort of came about. And then I'm going to have Jim Mathews come up and he'll take the rest of the do the rest of the program as the master of ceremonies. The Writers Center is a 37-year-old organization, for those of you who aren't familiar with it. We were founded over in Glen Echo Park, and we've been in this location for over 20 years. The Writers Center believes that everybody has a story to tell, and we help you find the best ways to tell it through writing. That means that we offer 300 writing workshops a year, all genres: poetry, short story, memoir, creative nonfiction, screenwriting, playwriting, and many permutations of those. We also host a series of readings, about 70 to 80 readings a year, including some seminars like the one we're doing on October 26th, called Publish Now. This is a day-long seminar, and these cards, by the way, are available on the racks outside as you leave. Since so many of our participants who come to do our Writers Center are eager to publish what they've written, this is a seminar that we ran for the first time last year, and we're doing it again this year. It's everything you want to know about self-publishing, digital publishing, and also the traditional world of publishing. So if you're interested, if you sign up between now and October 1st, you save a little bit of money. We already have about 80 people that have signed up, and we're going to have to cap it at about 150. So please, if you're interested, give the Writers Center a call or check it out online. There's a link in this card to the announcement of it, to more information about the event. We have been doing these open door series for many years, these Sunday open door reading series. Most of them are free, like this one. And we've been able to bring in local authors from out of the area who happen to be doing a book tour and often contact us through their publishers or their public relations people to come here and do a reading. We had Richard Blanco, the inaugural poet, come back in May and did a wonderful reading for us here with Dan Vera, another local, wonderful local poet. So that's the Writers Center. We're a literary community. If you're not a member, but you'd like to be involved in this kind of a community, please become a member, sign up for a workshop, and we would love to see you here. As far as our connection with the Veterans Writing Project is concerned, we, a number of years ago, were asked by the National Endowment for the Arts to be one of the organizations offering free workshops to military veterans and their families as part of the Operation Homecoming project. And so we offered those for several years. And then back in 2010, the National Endowment for the Arts was working with the Department of Defense to create a program for the new National Intrepid Center of Excellence on the campus of Walter Reed, just up the street here. And we were asked to be, this is a program that involves many different kinds of therapy, including art therapy, and they wanted it to have also a writing therapy program. So we were asked to help them, to collaborate with them on this program. And we have been in we've had a cooperative agreement with the National Endowment for the Arts since then to be the contractor for this program. And through this program, which has been, I think, transformational for everybody who has been involved in it, from the teachers like Dario, and Jim Mathews, and Ron Capps, to Sunil Freeman and me, sitting with these members of the military that have come out of combat experiences and hearing them write about and talk about their experiences, especially for someone like me who doesn't have a military background. It's been a very, very powerful experience. And through this program, we have met some wonderful people who are here today. Dario DiBattista, Ron Capps, who is the founder and director of the Veterans Writing Project, Melissa Walker, who is the head of art therapy at the NICO, and many, many others. When Jim comes up in a moment, he will be introducing these people in a little bit more detail. So now it's my great privilege to introduce Jim Mathews.
The VWP is a nonprofit organization, provides free writing seminars for vets, service members, and military dependents. The organization was founded, as Stewart said, by Ron Capps. And when he asked me to be a part of this several years ago, I knew it was something special because I was given the opportunity to join combat vets like Ron and Dario in this endeavor, and I think the mission of the VWP aligned greatly with one of my goals, which was the promotion and encouragement of more writing by veterans who hold, I believe, a unique perspective on the human condition, and therefore they are in a unique position to write great fiction, poetry, and other genres, regardless of whether or not it has to do with military. And as Stewart mentioned, I think it also has given me a chance to witness the partnership between VWP and the Writers Center and watch that flourish. Not only for readings like this, but also expanded workshops and offerings at the, for writing therapy activities at Walter Reed for servicemen and women who are suffering from PTSD and traumatic brain injury. Now, all that said, I think the writers that you're going to hear today should not be identified solely by their veteran status, but rather their talent and their ability as writers. They and many more veteran writers like them are contributing and will continue to contribute to the diverse body of this nation's literary achievement. I'm convinced of that. So now what I'd like to do is turn a phrase I learned, I think, day one in basic training, which was, hurry up and wait. And I'm going to turn that into hurry up and get out of the way and start the introduction for these folks. I'm going to start off with Carl Fedorko. He is a proud, born and bred New Jerseyan. Do we have anybody from New Jersey here? Don't believe the New York jokes. It really is the Garden State. I just want to get that out of the way. I lived there too. Carl Fedorko is a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. He serves currently as the news editor and opinion editor at the College Voice, the award-winning student newspaper at Mercer County College. Please welcome Carl Fedorko.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank the Writing Center and the VWP, especially Ron Capps and Dario DiBattista, for two crucial reasons why I'm able to share my work with you today. What you're about to hear started as an exercise this summer at the VWP workshops in DC. I took the fiction workshop taught by Mark Farrington, a man who's probably forgotten more about writing than I'll ever know. Mark challenged us to create an original work of fiction that we wouldn't or couldn't have written prior to the workshop. This is the first part of what was born that day. It's a work in progress. The working title is The Observer. If you break a promise to yourself, it's not a lie. You simply intended to follow through. I repeat the words, studying my reflection in the vanity mirror of my Cadillac. That's what I'll say when he starts the "why do I think I can't give my vices up" game. If he's got any wit at all, he'll try to outsmart me with a question that demands a speculative answer. Like he's doing me a favor by getting me to spill my guts and subvert my Fifth Amendment rights. I don't gamble, but I bet he asks something like, is self-destructive, obsessive, compulsive, impulsive behavior, well, the two of those have nothing to do with me, demonstrative of an unwillingness to change? I'll say, no, it's effusive of a willingness to commit. And if he asks me what effusive means, I'll just give him a wry half smile and make eye contact until he looks away. I practiced the smile a few times for posterity. I've done this 1,000 times. I noticed the time and tear through the last few drags of my cigarette before cutting the edge in. The clock readout was one of the selling points of this car. Not that a man needs to be sold a Cadillac, he either has one or he wants one. The cherry flies off my filterless Camel and they both land in a puddle. I scan the cars in the lot, trying to decide which one belongs to the good doctor. I spot 2 university stickers in the back window of a BMW 5 Series that's at least 10 years old and well on the way to Jalapeno. It's got DC plates and an OBX sticker on the bumper. If I had degrees from Gettysburg College and the University of Pennsylvania, I bet your ass that I would be driving that piece of shit. Hell of a rolling endorsement, Doc, I say, grabbing the handle of the door to a strip mall sublet private practice. I pause in the vestibule before crossing the threshold to his world, and I look at his name on the door. It's on the upper window of the second glass of the door. Out loud, I say, what the fuck am I doing here? But the white with gold outline lettering only repeats itself. Dr. Kenneth W. Ron, clinical psychologist. The receptionist is sitting too close to a computer screen behind a faux wood counter, probably looking at something irritating like Miley Cyrus's Twitter. And as I approach, I realize she's around my age, but not nearly hot enough to make me want to come back for a weekly chat. I can already tell that she's an idiot before she opens her mouth to chirp hi, because girls my age working as receptionists are the kind of girls who fell out of cosmetology school. Charles Casner, 17:30 appointment to see the doc. 5:30, I mean. Oh, give me a sec. She's twirling her hair as she blankly stares at something on her computer screen I can't see. If you have a list of names with a time next to them back there, weren't you expecting? Never mind. I have to fill out paperwork, right? You got a pen that writes? How do you spell it? P-E-N. I thought you said Charles. It might be under C-H-U-C-K. I spelled my name for it with the same measured cadence my 4th grade teacher used during family tree. Way worse than I scared before, I think, as she stands on tiptoes. I bet she used the dance. Banging the receptionist at my future ex-shrink's office would be a hell of a story, I think, but I wouldn't enjoy it. My thoughts betray me and I derail the train because I know I could get this job. That part's not exciting anymore. It's still way too soon. I remember the woman responsible for my apprehension, and I know she would think all of this is really fucking funny. I want to call her right now and tell her the story, but I know dead girls can't answer phones or check voicemail, but I'd leave a message anyway. I always do. For a second, I envy people who believe in ghosts and God and the afterlife, but even if I did believe in that stuff, she still wouldn't pick up when I called. Here's your paperwork and clipboard and a pen that writes, and come back when you're done, okay? I say thank you, but I'm avoiding eye contact with her. I'm strong enough to keep myself pursuing her, but I don't know if I can say no to a sure thing. I find a seat beyond her line of sight and crawl inside myself. And the space mark name, I start writing, fuck this, but I realize it before I finish the K and I scribble it out. Perfect, now it looks like I can't spell my own name. She would love hearing this story, I know it. I try and fail at not calling her, not thinking about calling her as I fill out the forms. I'm angry that I'm stupid and weak and my jaw hurts from grinding my teeth. When I finish the paperwork, I hand it over. My mom at the desk, Dr. Ronan exits his office and approaches with palm extended. He's taller than I expected, and he doesn't shake hands like a bitch. Good for him. I look him in the eye and he says, Ken Ronan. His smile even more rehearsed than mine. Come in and have a seat, Chuck. Do you like to be called Chuck? Most people call me Kaz, Doc. Do you like to be called Doc? Yeah, if you like. He must hate being called Doc because he looked away as he replied, oh, thanks, Alyssa. Doc didn't wait around to hear a reply, no prob, and I hate that he ignores her instead of hating her. I learned a long time ago that people whose jobs start with PSY won't, don't, can't care about you. Unless number one, they think you're smarter than them. Number two, they can't figure you out. Or number three, you can convince them that they're special. You know, make them feel like they're the only doc who's ever been able to really get you. Honesty is never good enough for these people. Thank you.
So our next reader is Jim Beane. He is a native Washingtonian. He's also a veteran of the U.S. Coast Guard. In addition to a story in the forthcoming issue of ODAR 30, which is the quarterly that the VWP puts out, he has many stories published in various literary magazines, including the anthology DC Noir. In 2010, he was selected as a finalist for the prestigious Kaplan Fiction Award, given by the New Letters Literary Magazine. Virginia Center for the Creative Arts has twice awarded him a fellowship for his work on fiction. Currently, he's working on his second collection of short stories and putting some final touches on his first novel. He's also a workshop leader here at the Writers Center. Please welcome Jim Beane.
Welcome. Thank you all for coming. This is a story titled Liberty. It'll be coming out in November in the Veteran Writers Project Review, the review. From the beginning. 0830, 11 December 1964. The steward Marco froze at the end of the quarter when he saw Dutch. He leaned to one side and shifted his feet. The ship pitched in heavy seas. Both his hands clung to the linen-covered tray meant for the officer's mess. Bosun's mate first class, Dutch Olson, leaned on the ship's store counter in the middle of the corridor. His rear end stuck out and blocked Marco's passage. Give me a pack of Luckies, he said to Hugo, the store clerk and Dutch's pal. Dutch tossed a nickel and a quarter on the counter, then whirled to glare at Marco. He and Marco were lots of things, but not pals. Seaman second class Samuel Carter leaned against a steel bulkhead next to Olson and waited his turn at the store. He had no feelings one way or the other toward Marco or any of the other Filipinos on board. He flattened himself to the bulkhead to make way, but Dutch didn't budge. Marco closed the distance between himself and Olson by half. "By your leave," he said, his voice boyish and thin. "You hear something?" Dutch said. He gazed overhead, as if the thin voice had come from above. Marco stepped forward. Beads of sweat slicked his forehead. "By your leave," he said. He stood rigid, at attention, squeezed against the starboard side of the corridor. Dutch plucked the luckies from Hugo's hand and leaned back against the bulkhead opposite the store's hatch. He stretched his legs into the passage and crossed one ankle over the other to make it near impossible for Marco to pass. Hugo rested his elbows on the drop-down counter. He cradled his chin in his hands and watched Marco sweat. He winked at Carter. Carter felt a boil in his throat. Dutch folded his arms across his chest. His biceps swelled like cured hams. He stood a foot taller than Marco and outweighed him twice. The steward cleared his throat. "For Officer Mess," he said. His voice wavered. He extended the tray as proof. "I know what it's for, Gook. You think I'm stupid?" Dutch stood erect and pressed the backs of his legs against the bulkhead to make way in an exaggerated fashion. The narrowest gap remained for Marco. Dutch swept his hand, inviting him to squeeze past. Marco stepped forward and the ship lurched. Dutch stuck his foot out. Marco tripped over it, stumbled, and fell at the deck. The steward saved most of the meal, but silverware flew and rolls tumbled. "What's the matter?" Dutch said. "I thought you island boys was used to rough seas." Hugo let loose a horse laugh, and he and Dutch slapped open palms. Marco scrambled after the rolls. Carter came forward and crouched to help. "Brace up, Carter," Dutch shouted. "You ain't no galley wench." He kicked the rolls further from the steward's outstretched hands. The ship shuddered to starboard, and Dutch pretended to lose his balance and used the opportunity to drive his knee into Marco's side. Marco slammed into the bulkhead and tried to hide beneath the store counter. But Hugo yanked the counter closed from inside and snapped the hatch lock shut. Marco racked upright, raised his fist to protect his face. Ship corridors are tight. No circling, no getting away. Dutch's broad shoulders filled the passage. He licked his lips. His eyes blazed. Carter grabbed Dutch's shoulder from behind. When the big man turned, Marco darted through the open hatch where he'd come. The rolls and tray stayed behind on the deck. "Chicken shit, pineapple," Dutch said. "Go on, Carter, pick that shit up." "No way," Carter said. Dutch's lips pursed together. "You disobeying an order, Seaman? For what? That fag pineapple?" Carter understood respect for rank. And Dutch deserved it, but not this time. Hugo dropped the counter open and called out to the Dutchman. Carter jumped on his chance and escaped through the hatch at the opposite end of the corridor. Dutch's curses echoed in his ears. 0845, same day. Carter burst into his quarters, fuming. "What's up?" Bowman said. "Fucking lifers," Carter said, and squeezed past Bowman. Carter shared quarters with Bowman, an Iowa farm boy who had never smelled salt water before he enlisted, and 4 others on board the Coast Guard cutter Hamilton. 6 bunks, stacked 3 over 3, and 6 lockers the size of long shoeboxes wedged on one bulkhead, and a table with 2 chairs filled the rest of the compartment. Levin, a Jersey boy in Bowman's shadow, sat with Bowman playing cards, boys pretending to be men. Levin's girly calendar, taped to the bulkhead next to the duty roster, served as the quarter's only decoration. Bowman and Levin tossed their cards to the center of the table and sat back in their chairs with their arms crossed. They wore white V-neck t-shirts and boxer shorts. A tattooed anchor covered Levin's forearm. "Dutch went after Marco again," Carter said. "Big deal," Levin said. "Old Dutch don't like Filipinos in his guard." "That don't give him the right to pick on him," Carter said. "Dutch ain't concerned with rights," Levin said. "He hates gooks, and he's got a special red ass for Marco, that's for sure." "What's Marco done?" Carter said. Nothing. He's Filipino, that's enough." Levin picked the cards up and began shuffling them. "Bad Dutchie," Bowman whispered. "He's killer, ain't he?" Levin said. Carter jumped in his rack, and Levin dealt Bowman another hand.
Dario is a former Marine. His work has been featured in the Washingtonian, the New York Times, the Washington Post, Connecticut Review, and many other places. In addition, he's been profiled in the New York Times and has been a commentator on National Public Radio. His editing projects include 20-something magazine, O Dark 30, and JMWW. He lives in Towson, Maryland, and serves as an instructor for the VWP and as an adjunct professor for the Community College of Baltimore County. He's seeking publication currently for his books Go Now, You Are Forgiven, a memoir of love, war, and coming home, and also the novel The Contagion. Please welcome Dario DiBattista.
Honor and privilege it is for me to be in front of everybody today. See some old peers, colleagues, good friends. The collaboration between the Veterans Writing Project and Melissa and the Writers Center has been one of the most amazing experiences I've had in my life. When I came home from overseas, I was kind of messed up. I read some of that stuff. And I just kind of took to writing intuitively, and it kind of helped me. And I always hoped I'd have an opportunity one day to be able to take the catharsis I got from writing and pass it on to others. And it is just amazing, the work that's going there. So I'm so thankful to work with Jim and Ron and Stewart and Sunil and Melissa and Bill, who's not here, on that work. At the sessions, what happens is the service members come down, we try and lure them out with some food. We just kind of shoot the breeze a little bit, talk about our experiences, talk about their experiences. Ron will give a little bit about craft. It's just an avenue to get them interested in telling stories, and then we just kind of move forward. And like Melissa, I always find those 20 minutes, 25 minutes that we write really kind of a good time for me too, to think about some stuff. I think for anybody who's been through trauma, whether that's the trauma of war or losing a loved one or whatever horrible things happen to us as part of being human, it stays with you in some regard. And being at Walter Reed is kind of a chilling reminder of some of the things that you don't see in other places. The first poem I want to read is something I've never read. It's something that happened to me when I went to Walter Reed. One of my old buddies from the service was a Marine liaison with the Wounded Warriors there. And the title is, On Unrelated Business, this is a poem by the way. On unrelated business, meeting up with an old military buddy at Bethesda, you discover the respite halls on the grounds of Walter Reed aren't really a place for rest. They're a place for mutilated men to fester in their rage. See that pissed off Marine in the corner, clenching his teeth, lost in some distant memory? That could have been you, motherfucker. Maybe if you hadn't been going west on the main supply route. Maybe if you had gone east that day. Maybe that's him, the only survivor you had heard about later. See that Marine, one leg, no arms, bullying his way through the crowd on his Segway? That could have been you too, if that mortar hadn't fallen asleep in the soft earth. A first sergeant speaks to a group of these forever wounded warriors, all huddled around him, looking like horror film rejects. So who wants to go to the Nats game, he asks, as if baseball could bring solace, give them a sanctuary from their anger. As if they could actually forget they can't catch foul balls with their stumps. No, there's no point for them, really, to leave the hall, to pretend. But you, lucky veteran, you'll still be going to the stadiums for the rest of your life with your balding friends, fat, filthy, too loud, filled with too much beer. But don't you ever forget, that could have been you. One hallmark of the service is you get assigned weapons, and it is your life or death. You learn to embrace it. They teach you poems about your rifles that you're supposed to quote. And then as you're taught, you feminize it, it becomes a part of you. In a combat zone, you never leave it with you. I wrote a poem about the special bond that I have with my rifle. 614-8572, can you tell me what you've seen? Who made you? Did delicate hands manage manage the machines that manufactured your murderous life? Did you jam in Kandahar, Mogadishu, Port-au-Prince, or Kopchi? Will you jam here in Husaybah? Did a new soldier carrying you freeze at the moment of murder in Grenada? His final breath a reminder of why he should have trusted you more? Do you carry sand and dirt from dozens of nations lodged in your private parts? Has your black skin been caressed and charmed by hands of brown, white, tan, blood, or oil? What is the history of your killing time? Who prevailed and who perished with you solidly in your hands? I love you, rifle, but I will not take you home to mom. When I get back, I'll put you away. I'll remember your every millimeter, but never want to touch you again. This poem is called The Letter Under Private First Class Wilson's. If I die with a thud by concussive blast or from lack of blood, do not make a monument of the circumstances of my death. Do not dig a hole and toss me inside. Instead, place a large mirror on level ground. With a bag of my ashes in your hand, step on the glass, wait for the wind. When it comes, lower your head with open eyes. Turn over my dust and watch me fly away. This is when I worked on a Hopkins workshop. This is one of my poetry friends over here. It's called Under the Flag, Inside the Cauldron. I'm a Permanente Brothers sandwich smashed with steak, slaw, and fries, a Gino sub of spray cheese and meat, and an In-N-Out burger too. I am the cocaine American Idol sirening Whitney Houston songs, Michael Phelps gold medals, $2 for 2 burgers for a $2 bill. I'm the words from the lips of the teleprompter men, Reagan, Obama, Clinton, and Bush. They are for democracy, for human dignity, for what's right. I am the IED entrepreneur, the Main Street mine producer, the Broadway bullet sponge, the Washington Monument unmanned missile strike, the Santa Ana Wall of 1 million hellfires, the Great Lakes atomic bomb. I am the fist of freedom, blood drained, unfurled. Well, that's one for you. Sonnet for Killing. In Husaybah, the men in pixel gear and bullet jackets occupy the town with armored trucks, ammo, and brawn. On clear evenings after curfew, they sneak around like ebony beetles. And IEDs and snipers lie concealed around their base, like scorpions waiting to sting. They freeze in place, eager to murder Marines. Place these fighters in another city, say London or New York, and exchange their guns for legal tinder, bullets for buffet, and give them skills they could bequeath their sons, and then you'd find that peace is a quack's pill. In Husaybah, men fucking love to kill. I got one more piece, it's equally depressing. It's nonfiction. Part of the reason I wanted Melissa to come is because, I think it's important to have some levity in these kind of events, but I do read stories on fashion because I know my story and the stories of other people who've been through these experiences are the unabashed experience that a lot of people have. This one's about when I thought about killing myself in my own rifle. It's called Unselling the Past. I've only stared down a rifle once, a Chinese model SKS equipped with a fold-out bayonet. Not that it mattered with the originally Soviet-designed weapon, but it looked clean enough. No doubt when the trigger was pulled, the cycle of operations of firing would perform as intended, and my life would end. Time stopped as I glanced into the black hole of the barrel. That warped darkness no one knows until they come upon it. The shadow area that's unexplainable in the physical world. The place of the moment of no return. I knew because I had armed it, the chamber of the assault rifle was locked and loaded, ready to go. Just one bullet, one shot, one kill. I tried to stare at the tip of the 7.62 millimeter bullet encased in the brass shell, but I couldn't see down into the barrel that far. Still clutching the handguards, I raised the weapon, pointed directly at my skull. I wondered if I could use this killing instrument to blow out the images of the pain I didn't want anymore. When I pulled the trigger with my toe, would they splatter behind me like scenes from a projector screen? Would the vindictive scowl of the woman who shredded my heart smile into the white wall of my apartment bedroom? Would the images of flag-draped coffins and the ghosts of my murdered friends salute the red and white stripes? Would the EMTs be able to watch the blackout memories of a year of self-destruction arrange themselves as rows of liquor bottles like Arlington headstones glistening against the scarlet sunset? Or would my memories stick like putty, pasted in place only as globs of spongy brain matter with cascading blood leaking down to the carpet? Would anyone care either way? No one, I guess, would want to see the inside of my head. But I pressed the cold metal against my forehead anyway. A bunch of my friends and I all joined the Marine Corps after high school. Many of them have since become cops. Apparently, it's the only civilian job that equates to the experiences of military service. I've asked them and several other law enforcement officers in Maryland about the proper way to travel with a rifle, and none of them have seemed to know exactly what the law forbids. So I slammed my rifle, wrapped inside a 55-gallon trash bag, into the large trunk of my overused and under-repaired Lincoln as I prepared to go. It was a bright sunny day in July when I entered my vehicle and followed my GPS to Bel Air Gun Supply and Pawn off of Route 1 in northeastern Maryland. Before closing the trunk and leaving, I had walked the gun in the oppressive daylight in full view of a cul-de-sac of judgmental luxury townhomes. I was living cheaply in a friend's basement. I was headed out to sell the memento of my almost self-murder. I could not afford to raise my fuel costs by using the AC, so I lowered all the windows as I sped along towards the shop. An unceasing whistle of wind that was being funneled into the trunk screeched like a boiling teapot. I turned loud music even louder and nervously rolled my fingers along the steering wheel. Sweat pooled under my armpits and lower back. The digital thermometer on my dashboard read 108 degrees. No, that couldn't be right. I had gambled big that summer. With this semester over and the rest of my writing program, living it up at a conference in Florence, a trip despite its connections to my Italian heritage I might never be able to afford, I had to find work. No school meant no student loans or GI Bill, living stipends showing up in my mailbox as fat monthly checks. I had betted that I could make a living as an artist, prostituting my struggles, making art of the trauma of life after war, for a nonprofit website called Not Alone. Yes, they said, we have been wanting to work with you more. What ideas do you have? But the freelancing money wasn't really enough, and it didn't show up in time for my bills. I had already sold my elliptical machine to pay for the rent this month, and now the utilities were due. So I drove ahead of my mission on selling the past. It was a random online photo of my ex, Lauren, a comment she left on a friend's MySpace page that showed her new look, that had brought me to this moment. Damn her beauty. Fire red hair like the sun dipping into the sea. The face of a Polish princess, digitally enhancing its beauty, a stunning attractiveness, both devastating and unobtainable. Her image already haunted me everywhere I went, so I tried to banish her from my mind and not look at old photos. But this picture on my PC stood out like a muzzle flash in the dead of night. It called out to me as the siren of my suicide. Damn my failures. Fuck my deficiencies. I locked the door as my roommate drank alone and numbed her mind with late-night cartoons in the living room, the TV screen flashing against her darkened form. I had met Lauren at Chili's in between my employments to Iraq. Ours was an age-old restaurant tale, the hot young hostess and the edgy waiter. Our romance sparked quickly. I would take her home from work sometimes and park my car along quiet four-side roads. We'd hop in the back seat and grab and grope each other. She liked to bite my shoulders and claw my back. Against my sexual motions, she'd arch her back like some glorious Roman monument, our wild breathing syncopating the passion. Concealed by a smoke screen of condensation, she'd curl her into me when we'd finish. I would stare at her, and she would stare at me, and we would say nothing. With her head in my chest, rising with my pulse, my arms around her, I felt as blessed as the richest king. When I went back to Iraq a few months after meeting her, she wrote me daily and drew me pictures. She scribbled hearts under her name and marked the envelopes with lipstick. I loved her then, and she loved me. But when I returned home, I became an ugly person, filled with rage and sorrow, prone to excessive self-medication. I had morphed into a manic man I couldn't control. I scared her away, and she hated me for it still. Lauren used to dye her hair red for me because I called her my cinnamon girl. Now I believed she had only changed her hair back to that color to spite me. She did it to show me how happy and confident she was, to brag about her beauty, to make me feel hideous, to cause me to feel chest-aching guilt and regret, to impress upon me the notion of self-murder. Just quit, you pathetic motherfucker. You're worthless. If just the photo of her could ruin me, how could I ever hope to live for any future? I'd have more moments like this one, a content and daily self-destruction, punctuated by moments of thundering despair. She'd appear again somehow. She always did, usually in my dreams. If I didn't pull the trigger, I knew I would have to later. Do it, you piece of shit. Do it. I parked in front of the small shop on a narrow strip along the main road. Construction leftovers decorated the open area adjacent to the store. Pallets of cinder blocks, wood scraps, and piles of thin gravel. I popped open the trunk and grabbed my rifle. The procedures for going inside were somewhat complicated. Stand in front of the cage door and hold the buzzer, wait, then pull the door hard. Upon entering, I observed the store's selection out of curiosity. Because of the core, I'll always have an affinity and fondness for things that can kill. Minus a small table of random football memorabilia, a signed helmet by Ravens linebacker Ray Lewis, and other football gear. It seemed like a typical gun store. Deer heads and other taxidermied animals on the wood support beams, cardboard boxes overflowing with holsters and ammo belts, rows of rifles along the walls behind a long display case of hundreds of pistols. Dozens of bumper stickers stuck on a large gray cabinet. One was emblazoned with the eagle, globe, and anchor of the United States Marines. In bold, black letters, it declared, "To err is human, to forgive is divine. Neither is Marine Corps policy." "Can I help you?" asked a short blonde woman in her mid-40s behind the counter. She wore light jeans and a tight blue t-shirt, a pistol attached to a cartridge belt looped around her waist. She looked like the kind of woman who could outdrink you and, while still wasted, shoot a gnat's ass from 200 meters away. I placed the trash bag on the counter. "Yes, please. I want to sell my rifle," I replied, pulling it out of the plastic. "A Chinese SKS. "You don't see many of those models. Where'd you get it?" "I just wanted to get rid of the fucking thing." "Another store in Parkville, long ago." "How much you want for it?" "100, I replied quickly, as I had thought about the number for the entire trip. "Give me a sec, hon," she said, grabbing the rifle to inspect it. "I think we can do that." I waited for a long time. She broke down the rifle partially and shone a light through the barrel, and she traced the finger along the inside of the chamber. "I haven't taken care of it, but I know those things really don't need to be cleaned," I said, anxiously as she methodically checked the weapon. Marine Corps lore is filled with stories of the same kind of rifle, working without jamming in Vietnam, after lying in the mud or being buried for years. We were taught to respect the enemy's weapons. $80, she said subtly. I had hoped to have enough for a week or two of Taco Bell bargains, but my share of the utilities was $75. "Done," I replied, happy to get anything. I detached the tan-colored sling, which was the same one I used for my M16 rifle in Iraq. "I got too many of these damn things," she said about the type of rifle. "But I like the bayonet," she finished. Unlike the easily found Yugoslavia models of SKS, the Chinese SKS was unique because of its triangle-shaped blade that causes a wound that is meant to be infectious and hard to patch up. I wondered how many rifles she purchased that had been used in death or were once primed for the moment of the kill. I was at the bottom again, this time financially, but thankfully I could now sustain myself for one more month. I had at least one more month to try and reach my dreams. I didn't shoot because I had seen at my friend's funeral a year earlier what a war death can do to a mom. I stared into her vacant eyes that were devoid of feeling and tried to express an appropriate sympathy for the passing of her son. But there was no comfort for her, and there was no comfort for me. I thought about how my mother would look at my funeral. In the black hole of the end of my rifle's barrel, all I could see was her face, wearing a darker torment I reasoned than my broken heart and poor mental health. They say nothing is worse than burying your kids. I didn't shoot, but that didn't mean that I was well. I decided I still wanted to die, but I would let the war do it for me. Several months later, I was stricken with mono and strongly encouraged not to deploy a third time. I thought it was God making things clear for me. Nah, buddy. I still have work for you. Though I'd sell it too in pursuit of my dream if it had any value, I still keep the bullet. It's stashed in a jar of objects that make up the story of my life. Inside it is a keepsake from every job I've ever worked, a note a girl gave me in high school, a volunteer wristband from every folk festival I've ever attended, a map of the Appalachian Trail, my old dog tags still wrapped in tape so they didn't clink together while on patrol, other secret things. I want to show this jar to the woman. I want to show this jar to the woman I will marry one day. I will want to show her how important my life is when measured against the whole.